welcome to episode 8 of The Final Glass. This is our second to last episode, but our last serious episode. We'll talk about episode 9 to come, which was my idea and which Jacob is not particularly appreciative of. So our show is
We're on
named...
season 2.
Yeah, we are on season 2. Our show is named after the Oscar Wilde quote.
After the first glass, you see things as you want to see them. After the second glass, you see things as they are not.
Mm-hmm.
And after the final glass, you see things as they truly are, which is the most terrible thing of all.
It is horrible.
He was talking about absinthe, but I think it applies to all alcohol.
I think it applies to all people, I mean, to be really honest. So last season, we went with current events and we connected current events to things that had happened in the past to kind of show how we got there. This season, we realized that was an impossible task. And so we decided to go about looking at history movies, some we love, some we don't love so much, and kind of seeing what they got right, what they got wrong, and how those connect to current events. So today we're actually, we should say your 6-word story of woe, as in Hemingway.
Yes, I got laser eye surgery, and now I can't stand very bright lights. And the studio has very small, bright lights, so they give me like
way more than 6 words. I think we should write a haiku,
We should.
and you can deliver the haiku.
We should.
So
I will say
season 3 will be haiku.
Yes.
Yes. So today we're going over both of our favorite movies. Love this movie. It's from 2017, and it is, of course, The Death of Stalin.
Yes.
Or if you are our manager, Anita, watching this movie, it is Stalin is Dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
A translation of a translation.
Death of Stalin. Fantastic movie. 2017. A lot of it filmed in Kyiv because that's where you could get the Moscow-looking architecture.
Yeah.
And nobody in their right mind wants to film in Russia.
Yeah.
So Kyiv, it was.
And it was banned.
It was banned in Russia because, heaven forbid, we show... because people can't drink the final glass.
Exactly. And they can't mock Stalin as he should be mocked.
Can't see things as they really are, and there was some buffoonery. Starred some of my absolute favorite actors, one of whom is Steve Buscemi. Basically, anything Steve Buscemi does, I will watch and laugh uproariously. So I hope he doesn't do anything that's really serious, because I'm not sure I could.
So he was Khrushchev, and he normally doesn't look like Khrushchev, but for the purposes of the movie.
I think they padded him up. They must have padded him up.
Yeah, and gained a lot of weight for that role.
Yeah, and then Jason Isaacs, who played Sexy Zhukov.
Yes.
We'll talk about how accurate that was.
The Russian general.
He was Sexy Zhukov, though. I don't know how else to put that. And, of course, Jeffrey Tambor as Idiot Malenkov.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he did look like an idiot.
Yeah.
He did look like the man was very slow.
And Rupert Friend as the son of Stalin.
Vasily Stalin.
Yeah.
Okay, he's another one where anything he does. We watched, I can't remember what it was, Anatomy of a Scandal, I think, where he plays a politician that, gets caught up in the Me Too thing. And honestly, we had to stop watching it halfway through because Rupert Friend plays that role so well. I just started hating everybody, any man.
Yeah.
Like he was, anyway.
But he did a job with Vasily Stalin.
He does a very, I would be hard pressed to find anything he doesn't do a good job with.
Yeah.
Honestly. He did a great job in Homeland. He did a great job in everything that he does. So, Rotten Tomatoes score of 94%. One of the few times I agree with critics.
Yeah.
Not a great historian score. And some of that is absolutely earned, and some of that is just historians are crotchety people. And I think that's a way to put it. Like, they're very crotchety, and if you don't cross a T or dot an I, all of a sudden you're Satan.
Yeah, but and this movie was definitely truthy. It was
truthy. It was
truthy, and we'll go through some of the points, but the satire is very well written.
And Armando Iannucci, the guy who directed it, Veep.
Yeah.
Which shows.
Yeah.
This is the Vipazization.
Yes.
I haven't even started yet.
Or the Stalinization.
Stalinization of Veep. Hey,
Yes.
that's it. So, that being said, let's talk about what we're drinking. I am going again local with Brodnica, which is basically blueberry liquor, and I don't really generally like blueberry anything. Okay, blueberry lemon I like, but we'll see how this works. And this is from Zagreb, so it's a good local liquor. Well, I don't know. It may be good. We'll see.
And I'm going with cognac, which was one of Stalin's favorite drinks.
They all seem to like cognac. There was some, maybe it seemed fancy.
I did.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was a specific cognac that Stalin liked.
Yeah, so this is one of the issues that I have with the way that things are described. So he
It was apocryphal.
no, about Stalin's history. For instance, he liked cognac from what country?
Armenia.
There is no cognac from Armenia.
How is there no cognac
There's
from
brandy from Armenia, but cognac is specifically brandy from the cognac region of France.
Aha. Oh, so it was sparkling brandy.
It was sparkling bullshit. Cognac has to be from France, like
Okay.
champagne.
I think that's a little bit overwrought. And so
No.
that's one of those things. Like there are some things that I will just, because it seems so silly, I'll just call it that. I will call Gran Padano Parmesan.
Well, cognac that is not made in the cognac region of France is just brandy. So just call it brandy.
In any case, na zdravia.
Na zdrowie.
I liked the Malina better.
So
But this isn't bad. You know, actually, I wish that I had some lemon. I think lemon, not lemon, but like a few drops of lemon juice. I think that would make this fantastic. So
I'm drinking Hennessy, or as the French call it, on sea.
do they?
They do.
I've never heard French call it anything.
Terrible people.
Okay, let's dig right into it. So we watch this movie at least once a year, sometimes more. Our children watch this movie. Anita watches this movie. The only reason Dragica hasn't watched this movie is because it's really hard to find this movie with Croatian subtitles.
Yeah.
So if we can find Croatian subtitles, Dragica will watch this movie. She will probably watch it forever. Anita loves this movie so much, she would like to create a sequel called Death of Tito.
Yes.
So this movie is absolutely beloved in the Red Africa offices and our home. And of course it begins with, it begins with a concert. Yeah. So the concert happened.
Yeah.
But like 9 years before.
Yeah. It happened in this, in some of the darkest days of World War II. 1944.
Yes, near the end of World War II.
Yeah.
Now, there is some argument about whether it happened in 1944 or maybe later in 1947. For the sake of argument, we're just going to say 1944 because it's easy and the math is easy. So the pianist, what was her name? I have it written down here. Maria Yudina. So she actually was renowned. Stalin really did love her playing. He really did call and say, hey, I would like a recording of this concert that Maria gave in 1944. They really had not recorded it. They really did have to bring in people and bring in Maria and record it then because they were afraid of what would happen if Stalin knew that they had not recorded it. He ended up paying. So, of course, because this wasn't the night that he died, she did not put a note in there that killed him. Well, I guess he didn't die that night, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
However, he rewarded her with 20,000 rubles because he loved this so much. And she did send him a note. She sent him a note which said, Comrade Stalin, thank you so much for this payment. I really appreciate it. To do the most good, I'm donating it to my church, and I will pray for your soul. So she was feisty.
Yeah.
She really, they portrayed her as feisty. She really was feisty. And she continued to be. It's funny to me that there was this big foofara over getting a recording of her, because in 1960, this is, of course, 7 years after Stalin died, in 1960, she was banned from being recorded because she had pro-Western views for music. And she was doing naughty things like allowing Boris Pasternak to read Dr. Zhivago in her apartment.
Yeah.
So the first time this was read in public was in Maria Yudina's apartment. And, that was naughty.
It protected her during Stalin's time, but later on, she was forbidden.
Right. And we'll see this pattern with Stalin if you look back. Everybody is terrified, as they should be. So nobody's speaking their mind to Stalin except for a few people. And those people who speak their mind, some of them, and that's actually a line from the movie. Yeah. Some of them he seems to enjoy the pushback. So I guess it's luck of the draw where people would end up.
Yeah, and he was a mercurial leader, as he's portrayed in the movie.
Yes.
And he did enjoy putting people at a disadvantage, and he enjoyed making people uncomfortable.
I love that grenade story. Oh, is there one in your pocket?
No, come on. No, not again. No, God, you. Oh.
He did indeed.
He was a bully.
He was a bully. He had the late night parties that they describe in one of the opening scenes of the movie.
The tomatoes were true.
Yeah, where the tomatoes were true, where he put tomatoes in people's pockets and then smash them. And he did force everyone else to get drunk and stay up late. And then they
watch Westerns.
Watch Westerns, and then they would have to wake up very early to go to their jobs, and he would sleep in.
Yeah, because he's Stalin.
So he kept his potential rivals and he kept his potential successors off their
off kilter
all the time. And this is something that the movie portrays very well, because in the end there was no successor to Stalin that was identified. And the Stalin's moves were such that après moi le déluge.
Yes, very much. Very much. And there is, however, one thing which does tie the Maria Yudina story to the night that Stalin had his stroke, which is, apocryphally, it was her concert recording that was on his record player when he had a massive brain hemorrhage.
Yeah.
So it does tie in there. This is one of those things where you're putting in, and this happens a lot in history. If you watch history as it happens, it seems like nothing is happening, right? And when you retell a story of things that seemed so hilarious to you at the time, are so astounding, when you retell the story, in retrospect,
not so funny.
It's not so funny. It's not so astounding. And so you kind of have to smash things together a little bit.
But there are other things that when you tell the story, people go, wow, that's a terrible story. And to you at the time, and even in retrospect, it seems hilarious. Yeah. They shot him. Ooh.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a Slav humor thing, too. Yeah. I think that's... Anyway, so that is how the concert worked into that. So let's go ahead and talk about Stalin's henchmen. And we don't have time to cover the whole Presidium. And unless you're like a super astute historian and you've read all of the books, you probably don't know, and I'm going to say the name wrong, you probably don't know who Kaganov is. So, even though this is a big character in the movie, we're not going to go over. We're going to go over Khrushchev, Beria, Zhukov, and the kids.
Yep.
Yeah. The kids, Svetlana and Vasily.
Yeah.
So, should we start with...
Let's start with Khrushchev. So Khrushchev...
Well, no, wait. Let's start with one that we're not going over. Let's start with Molotov. Because there was this is the line in the movie. Like, Molotov was on the list Molotov really was on the list. So, like, Stalin's death
The list of
did,
people to be shot.
yes,
Just to
did
clarify.
save Molotov.
Yeah.
That did happen. That was true. And it was also true that Molotov's did not know his wife was still alive. Molotov's wife had been taken away, been forced to divorce her. And really, when he saw her, he was overcome with emotion. But I'm going to call bullshit there because, man, you saw them arrest your wife. For all you knew, they tortured and killed her. For sure, she was tortured. And now you're overcome with emotion because you see it. Like, where were you? You did it. Okay, I wasn't there, but still.
One of the functions of the Soviet dictatorial system, but it's a truth across dictatorial systems spanning the globe and spanning human history, is the people who are closest to the top aren't necessarily protected. And as Stalin's airbrushed photos showed us, the people at the top,
Favorite meme.
yeah, the people at the top would often suffer terrible fates. So on one hand, Stalin needed them to execute his horrific plans, but on the other hand, he wanted to keep them on their toes. He wanted to keep them off balance, and he wanted to make sure that none of them could rise to the point where they could either overthrow him or even easily step into his shoes if he was incapacitated.
Right.
Which is exactly what the movie shows. During the period of time that Stalin is incapacitated before his death, the Presidium is paralyzed. They each take small acts. They do small things to try to position themselves against each other, but they're incapable of making any coherent policy or doing anything that makes any sense.
Right. And that worked effectively for him, for Stalin. So we'll start with Khrushchev now.
Yeah, well, let's talk real quick about what happened immediately afterwards.
Let's bury you here first.
Yeah, what do you think?
Can't be fucking.
No, that's wait.
You got here quick, comrade. I didn't stop to put on cologne.
Okay, he really did pee himself.
He really did pee
He
himself.
really did pee himself. There was pee everywhere.
And so Khrushchev, indeed, Khrushchev would refuse to go inside to check on Stalin to see if he was dead or.
Well, the movie showed Beria and Malenkov as getting there first.
Yeah, but
in reality, Khrushchev called Beria, and Khrushchev himself did not want to go in, and so Beria went in.
Yeah, Beria went in.
So there was this kind of.
Yeah, so Lavrenti Beria was the head of the secret police at the time.
He was disgusting.
And he seemed to be a hardliner and a fanatic. But
Well,
as the movie says,
we're going to talk about Beria. So
Yeah, well,
let's.
Okay, so other potential events, and one of my favorite facts about the death of Stalin. So they concealed it for a few days, but afterwards a telegram was sent out announcing the death of Stalin. So this was sent out in Morse code to multiple Russian consulates, embassies, and military units as a standard military protocol. So one of the Morse code operators in the U.S. who was intercepting these messages, didn't speak Russian, but who was intercepting the messages and writing them down, was Johnny Cash. Yes, that Johnny Cash.
I do wish. I feel like that could have been a side bit in the movie.
Yeah.
I do feel like that could have been a side, just really quick. You flick over to a young Johnny Cash, boop, 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 and he looks up. Like, I feel like they could have put that in.
So Johnny Cash was a young airman in the Air Force, Morse code interception, and he's the one one of the ones who transcribed the message. He didn't translate it, but he was one of the first people to see that Stalin. I'm sure he spoke some Russian words, but he was the first one to see that Stalin was indeed dead.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And since we're talking about the actual scene, they did not shoot everybody.
They didn't.
Lookalikes. I think their contract's up. Swift. You come with me.
I don't understand.
And they did not loot the dacha, Stalin's dacha. In fact, it's been kept like a time capsule. All of his stuff is still there. The one it was going to be a museum, and then Khrushchev was like, "How about we don't do that?" And then it just kind of stayed. And the one time we do know that it was used was in 2000 when Putin called the oligarchs in and had kind of a symbolic meeting there. I think one of the oligarchs ended up defecting, and paid the price.
A few of them defected.
Yeah,
went to
like he
jail.
didn't comprehend the message of the meeting in Stalin's dacha. And other side note that goes with Stalin's dacha, Putin, I think it was in like 2018 or sometime around this movie, or I'm sure they would have put it in there. He said that his grandfather had cooked for Lenin and Stalin at various dachas. He didn't specify which dacha, but maybe he did. He did cook for. Okay, his name was Spiridon, which sounds Greek to me, but I don't speak Russian, so I don't know. And he did cook for Lenin. He did cook at Hotel Astoria. He did cook. So he was a cook. Maybe he was trying to impress Prigozhin at that time. I don't know.
Could be. So the scene at the dacha where the military shoots the staff, and then the secret police shoot the military, and then they get shot in turn, didn't happen. But
That did happen in other incidents.
it happened in other instances.
Yeah, so it was truthy.
And it wasn't. No one came to a good fate. Most of the high-ranking people were retired. Some of them ended up killing themselves, but none of them got away scot-free. No one got promoted.
Yeah, there wasn't a good ending for anyone. And other side note, gosh, Stalin's staff liked him.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they liked him.
I think that was a bit of Stockholm syndrome.
Do you think?
And part of it was being so close, flying so close to the sun.
Maybe.
Because otherwise, if you didn't like him, you probably didn't last long.
I don't know.
Stalin had a lot of poor things about him, but he was a good judge of character.
I don't think it's considered a good judge of character when you just kill everyone.
Good judge.
I mean, like that. It was anyway. So Khrushchev. He really was fat.
He really was fat. He really was a Ukrainian peasant.
He was, and he spoke like one. So I thought, one thing this movie did was use accents to tremendous effect. Khrushchev did sound different than everybody else. So Steve Buscemi using his American accent was just fine because he was using a Ukrainian peasant accent. He really was foul-mouthed.
Yeah.
And that scene in Enemy at the Gates, where he says, they're shitting their pants.
I want them to act like they have balls. I want them to stop shitting their pants.
Yes, that was very typical for Khrushchev.
And Khrushchev had come up from the ranks of political officers, and so he was.
Was it Stalingrad?
He was at Stalingrad, and he was a very savvy operator. One doesn't get to those heights without having some political talent, and his political talent won the day.
Yes.
And in the end, he did end up replacing.
Well, it took a bit.
Yeah.
It did take a bit because immediately after Stalin's death, there was a triumvirate that kind of took control, which was Malenkov, Beria, and Molotov. Yeah. And nobody wanted Beria in charge. And we'll get to Beria and we'll kind of discuss why on that. But nobody wanted him in charge. And so there was a conspiracy, and Khrushchev was at the top of it. So it was Khrushchev agitating to get rid of that triumvirate. But for the first 6 months, it was those three in charge.
And it talks about the fate of Khrushchev and how Khrushchev was himself replaced and retired to a collective farm, and that happened.
Yes. Yeah. So do we need to talk anything else about Khrushchev? I thought it portrayed Khrushchev truthfully.
I think it did too.
He was that schemy. He really did have a very close relationship with his wife, who was from Poland. She was an ethnic minority from Poland. And I don't actually think they were married for a really long time. I think that which I don't know how they got away with, because Stalin was notoriously, like, what do you call it? I wouldn't say straight-laced. I would say
conservative.
A prude.
Yeah.
He was notoriously a prude. So,
but it is the movie makes him out to be a central figure, and he was indeed a central figure in the events that happened.
Yes. So
Beria. So Beria head of the secret police. Of course, you couldn't be a nice person. Condemned thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds
He
of
took
thousands
it
of people.
beyond not a nice person. So Barria not only loved to do his torture and have people tortured and have people
And
killed.
the movie shows that.
Horribly. Yeah, it really, and it shows it in a very absurdist way where it like, long live Comrade Stalin.
Yeah.
He really did. He also had a side business in abducting young, like 14, 13, 14, young teenage girls, raping them and often murdering them.
And the movie does not skimp over that fact.
No,
The
they
movie
show
covers
a
it.
girl who gets out by the skin of her teeth.
Yeah. So the movie does cover various crimes.
It covers it, but it's subtle. You have to kind of know ahead of time what's happening, and then you see that they do indeed touch on that. And I actually think that's much better than the heavy, hard-hitting, look what he does, because that's how it would have looked to people on the outside. If you weren't one of the people whose 13 or 14-year-old daughter was abducted, horrendously tortured and raped and then murdered, you may hear rumors about this going on, but it wasn't like in your face every day. And to the point with Beria, where now his former Moscow villa is the Republic of Tunisia's embassy.
Yeah,
And
and the coda hasn't been written yet because they're still finding bodies.
They're still finding bodies. They had to fix a septic system, and there were like a ridiculous number, 7 or 8, maybe more, I can't remember the exact number, bodies of young girls found that had been buried and covered with quicklime by this septic system. This is all Beria. The rooms where Beria used to torture these children, they were children, they're still there. And people who have worked at this embassy have reported that there are still like marks on the walls where fire was used on people. And not only that, they do report like a heavy haunting of this. They see girls running, screaming down the halls. And I know scientifically, we don't have scientific proof of ghosts. So if we're going fully on the scientific thing, then we would say there's no such thing as ghosts. However, if there is a building that would have tormented ghosts, Baria's villa is it.
And Beria's, however, it's still being used. Okay, if you tore down every building in the former Soviet Union that the Soviets used to torture and murder people, there wouldn't be a lot of buildings standing.
That's true. That
So,
is absolutely
I
true.
guess you got to make do with what you have if you're the Tunisians.
I don't know. I would maybe move to a smaller abode.
Yeah.
But I think actually it gets assigned to you. The building gets assigned to you by the government. So, okay. So keeping with Baria, but moving on from his disgustingness in his villa, the movie shows him being arrested almost immediately after Stalin's death, and the trial is held by the main characters
In a barn.
was it in a barn?
Yeah. I think
All right, Judy Garland, boys and girls, it's showtime.
In reality, it was 6 months. He was in charge for 6 months. He was or 3 months.
It's 3 months.
It was a few months, yeah. And then he was imprisoned for 6 months because they had to tear down his security apparatus. And then he was just tried, not allowed a defense, and executed on December 23rd, 1953.
And then the final insult,
He was
wife and
cremated.
kid.
Oh, yeah, and his wife and kid were arrested and sent off to the gulag. But I'm going to say right here, I don't know that that's an insult. I think they probably deserved it, and I would not normally say this. However, because what he was doing at his villa, his wife lived there.
Yeah.
Like, there are still torture marks on the wall. She had to know this was going on, even if it wasn't while she was there. And the same with his kid. So very rarely do I have no empathy for a side person to evil. I have no empathy here.
Yeah.
None. So
Beria got his in the end.
he did, and he was not tried by Khrushchev. He was not tried by Malenkov. He was tried by I think the judge's name was like Ivanov or something, and then 6 of his top lieutenants were tried along with him, and they were all killed. The 6 lieutenants were taken elsewhere. The area where they were killed was the headquarters of the military something.
MGB. Or no, it was a military corps.
Okay.
It was like a military corps headquarters to keep it out of the intelligence apparatus.
I didn't even think of that part, but they did. It is still standing. It is still being used for the same purpose. And indeed, the bunker where Beria was shot, and he did like beg for his life and beg and plead not to be killed.
George,
Here's the trial. Spit it out, will you?
Please, I'll
Marshal,
Comrade General Secretary! You're touching me! You're touching me!
Just nasty. I can't even, there are not words. The bunker where he was shot is still being used. And likely he was not the only one shot there, because they tend to use the same places over and over again.
But a judge found him guilty, but I'm sure that his guilt was well established long before that.
Well, that's how it had tended to be,
That's
right?
how it tended to be. The judgment was passed long before the trial started.
Yeah. So they really did arrange a false presidium meeting. They got everybody on board. They really did arrange a false presidium meeting that he showed up for. And they really did have a little button. Khrushchev pressed the button, I think, not Malenkov. But he did in the movie too, but it was a bit more dramatic. That really did happen. And then Khrushchev really did read right there the accusation, basically, that he was a British spy. However, funny thing about this just disgusting, horrific human being on a scale that made him disgusting and horrific, even within the disgusting and horrific Soviet Union, where these crimes were committed at the top. Like, he was even horrible for that. When he took over in the triumvirate, he actually instituted a bunch of reforms, one of which was normalizing relations with the West, which Stalin was against. He released 1.2 million prisoners from the Gulag. And he basically opened the files of the doctor's plot, which also plays a role in the movie.
We found some old friends of yours.
I've never met them before in my life.
So he was this horrible, odious, terrible, disgusting, evil person. And yet immediately these 3 things he started doing.
But I'm sure that those things were for ill purposes. For him to try to get
eventually it would have been ill purposes.
Yeah, but in the end it didn't work.
Yeah, so that was Beria. So Zhukov.
What's a war hero got to do? Get some lubrication around here.
Zhukov was not actually sexy. Although Jason Isaacs plays him super sexy. However, he had a super strong presence. He was extremely magnetic.
And he had won World War II.
He had won World War II. He was a brilliant, within the Soviet, this time instead of Maggie, we have Jadwiga visiting us. She won't jump up here, though, because she is not very athletic, but I think you're going to have to pick her up. So Jadwiga hears us talking about the Soviet Union, and she wants to join in because she is a Siberian, so she has some opinions on that.
Yeah.
Zhukov, not sexy, magnetic.
Yeah.
And one of the few people that Stalin allowed to argue with him. So Zhukov knew that Stalin was over him. He didn't argue with Stalin in a kind of I should be in charge way. It was a you're being stupid way. And Zhukov was a Russian peasant.
And Zhukov had been removed by Stalin, so it wasn't.
So he was not in Moscow when this happened.
Yeah, and it wasn't an entirely a positive relationship between the two.
No, but in the kind of abbreviated timeline that they use, Zhukov was a part of a big part. He was commanding the army when they took down Beria.
Where were the punch falling down?
You want to talk to General Zhukov? Now's your opportunity.
Spit it out, Georgie. Staging a coup here.
He's got a knife by his ankle.
Sorry, disgrace.
So in their abbreviated timeline, he was already there, I guess. But in reality, he was not. He came immediately. He was put in charge of the army again. And he and Khrushchev were the big ones, although they got everybody else on board to take down Beria.
And one of the good pieces that, one of the good things that the movie kind of plays on and it reminds you of is these people at the top of these positions were essentially trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to deal with each other. It wasn't a matter that Beria or Khrushchev or Malenkov or Zhukov were going to be peacefully retired, although Malenkov kind of was.
Yeah, Malenkov and he was the first. And I think after Beria, it really started to go to where they had peaceful retirements rather than being horribly tortured and killed.
Yeah.
So
But at the time, with Stalin, no one was expecting a peaceful retirement.
Yeah.
They were expecting Beria's treatment. So either you win or you die.
yeah, exactly. And it seems that Beria was the last of that kind of thing. So I think we're good on. Are we good? Zhukov really was covered in medals.
Yeah.
So the scene where he comes in and he throws off his jacket and you see wow. Yeah. And Jason Isaacs, who is also always marvelous. Jason Isaacs used an accent in his acting that did portray the fact that Zhukov was a Russian peasant. He really did speak that way, but the Russian version.
Yeah. So let's have the second glass before we talk about the fate of the two kids to see things as they are not. Because the two kids very much saw things as they are not. Both Svetlana and Vasily.
Cat hair everywhere.
Grew up in a rarefied environment where things were what they were not.
Your performativeness.
I, too, can be performative. Cheers.
Na zdravia. Yeah, this needs lemon. So, Vasily first. Actually, let's talk about Yakov.
Yakov.
So Stalin had 3 children, not 2. Only 2 children are in the movie. And the reason for that is that the oldest one, Yakov, was dead.
Yeah.
And Yakov was Stalin's son from his first marriage. He trained as an artillery officer. He was captured by the Germans and he died in Sachsenhausen concentration camp. The Germans tried to trade him and Stalin famously said, "We have your son."
And Stalin very famously said, "Stalin, he has no son."
Stalin, of course, actually had 2 sons.
Yeah.
But he didn't like Yakov all that much. He was famously hands-off with all of his kids except for Svetlana, and even with Svetlana when she got older than little child. And Yakov tried to commit suicide several times. He just wasn't the sort of child Stalin thought Stalin should have.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
And Vasily was also not the kind of child that anyone should have.
So Vasily and Svetlana's mother killed herself. But they were not told that. And they were told that she died of appendicitis. And when they found out, it threw them for a loop that she had killed herself. But being married to Stalin is no picnic. And the way that this affected Vasily was he started drinking pretty heavily at age 13.
And that's about a year before most Russian kids catch on.
Yeah. So
Early starter.
So he definitely, the alcohol problem that he is portrayed with, that Rupert Friend portrays him so beautifully with, he definitely had.
Crime has been perpetrated. Hairy monsters in coats have scooped out my father's brain and sent it to America.
And he was a combat pilot, as Rupert Friend portrayed him, and he did fly combat missions, although there's questions about how dangerous those missions were.
Yeah,
But
including 29 combat missions.
29 combat missions, which in the U.S. Air Force at the time would be enough to get you taken off the front lines.
But no, the Soviets kept you going.
Yeah, the Soviets kept you going until they used you.
Interesting. You know, there's an interesting story that just came out, and I cannot vouch for the truthiness of this, but modern day pilots in the U.S., the pilot who was recently shot down and rescued in Iran, he actually was also in one of the planes that were shot down over Kuwait. And so I read that this does not normally happen. The pilot's body undergoes a lot of trauma when they have to eject. And so, but in his case, it seems to be true. And if it's not true, I'll put up a pop-up, but.
It's definitely truthy. But indeed, Vasily Stalin was out of control, and he was an unstable person. And he did
love the hockey team.
He loved the hockey team, who was killed in a plane crash.
Play up! Play through! Ignore me! Get it! Give it! Hit it!
Well, the hockey team here was the new hockey team.
Yes, yeah.
The hockey team really was killed in a plane crash. Vasily Stalin really did hide it from his father and just like find a whole new hockey team.
Yeah.
So that was also true. He really did break in and accuse them of poisoning his father. There is some argument that Beria might have, but not a great argument.
And his antics did indeed earn him an arrest.
He was
an imprisonment.
He was arrested and imprisoned just like 2 months after Stalin's death. He spent like 10 years, 9 years in prison, 8 years maybe, some.
Till 60. So
till 60, yeah. Then he got out.
And he promptly
died.
Of alcoholism.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Vasily Stalin. So Svetlana has a more interesting story.
Way more interesting story. I think that the actress portrayed her very well. She was really flighty. She was smart. She worked as a translator. But she was weirdly spoiled and weirdly fearful at the same time.
And detached from reality.
For the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Detached from reality. So Svetlana continued working. It said they sent her to Vienna. Khrushchev did in the movie. She actually never went to Vienna. She stayed in Moscow working as a translator for a while. She got married before her father died. She had gotten married. She had 2 kids. And
so that was not in the movie.
But had a divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that she had children when her father died was not in the movie. She was divorced. She ended up falling in love with I think he was an Indian ambassador. Maybe not an ambassador, but embassy staff. And could not marry him. Then he died. And so she asked for permission to take his ashes to India. The permission was granted. So she did. And then she was like, I don't want to come home. And the Serbs were like, well, you have to come home. And Svetlana said, no, I don't. Promptly contacted the Americans, and hijinks ensued, and she defected to America.
Quite a coup.
I think in 1967.
Quite a coup.
So she did write a memoir, and it as memoirs usually do, portrayed her in the best possible light. Another memoir was written by the daughter of Ambassador Kenan, and his daughter had very different things to say about Svetlana. Very flighty and had her issues. And so she lived in the U.S. She became a U.S. citizen. She moved to Wisconsin. Then she went to the UK. Then she went back to the Soviet Union
Briefly.
in 1984 and said, "Oh, America's terrible. America's awful." But then she went back to America
Because
was
the
like,
Soviet Union was awful.
yeah, then she was like, on second thought, America really isn't bad. And then she died. And she has 2 children who still live in Russia. Well, one of them died, but the grandchild, and the other daughter is American.
A punk rock
Is she?
protester she is.
I didn't know she was a punk rock protester. So
Covered with
Svetlana.
tattoos. Covered with tattoos.
Okay, well, I can't really say anything about the tattoo situation.
Yeah.
So so I think I should have drank this faster. Oh, one thing we didn't go over when Barria was arrested. There is something that didn't happen, but which is an Easter egg to something which actually happened, and it involves Khrushchev.
So Khrushchev said, no one will remember your name. I'll bury you.
I'll bury you in history.
I'll bury you in history. Which didn't happen there, but it did happen later on at New York City at the UN.
Yes, yes. And it's even in a song by Sting.
Yeah.
It didn't happen that way. He was not a good prognosticator.
He was not. So
He should have called Psychic Nikki.
he did take his shoe off in the middle of a meeting and pound it on the table and did say, "We will bury you."
Did that happen at the same time? I don't think those 2 events happened at the same time.
No, it was later. This Khrushchev was much later in New York.
Okay, yeah, but the shoe and
yeah, we will bury you.
but the shoe and the "we will bury you," I don't think happened at the same
It
time.
happened at the same time.
Are you sure they happened at the same? I don't think. Okay, I'll look that
we'll
up.
look it
Maybe
up.
you are correct.
So there was another incident with Khrushchev being a true Russian peasant where he could not believe this is during the same period of time when he was in New York. He could not believe that American grocery stores really were that nice. And so he kept demanding.
To be fair, they are very well stocked.
He kept demanding to be driven to different grocery stores because in the Soviet Union, they had Potemkin grocery stores where the foreign dignitaries would come and shop and it would be this beautiful thing full of food.
They still do.
And they still do.
They still do. You know, there is a thriving business of bringing people to Russia to
show them.
promote
Yeah.
Russia, and what they are seeing is not
So Khrushchev,
the real Russia.
Khrushchev felt that this would be the same thing in the U.S., but it wasn't. They just took him to random grocery stores.
Yeah. But it's funny to think that in his mind, behind the scenes, people were like, it was like those Looney Tunes cartoons. Like behind the scenes running around trying to stock everything up behind him.
Grips and setting things up, gaffers wiring things up.
Yeah. But they have this in North Korea as well. They have people whose job is to buy a bowl and then they bring the bowl back, right? Yeah. So when you have these tour groups that go to North Korea, that's what they're saying. This is so I don't know how you would even like how do you interview for that job? Let me tell you how well I think I could do that job very well because I do love to shop.
It's acting, professional.
It is, but I mean, I could make it look so natural.
The bowl buyer.
I could make it look, yes, you could make it look natural too.
So yeah, but the other thing is let's hit the doctor's plot real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So the doctor's plot really did happen. Although the doctors weren't executed, but
Some of them were.
Some of them were, but they weren't all executed. So Stalin got it into his head that the doctors were trying to poison him, and so
there was a bit of anti-Semitism going on over this. Yeah.
But then Beria decided to round up all the doctors and.
Well, there really was the one cardiologist who was basically telling on everyone, trying to get favor for herself. Yeah.
So yeah,
which wasn't an unusual situation.
So that part of it was true and part of it was false, and it's so ridiculous in the movie that you think there's no way it can be true. But...
Yeah, this scene where they go to pick up the last. Well, if the doctor's still here, then he's not a good doctor.
Yeah.
But they go to pick up that last doctor, and he notices his second sight notices this van pulling up, and he's walking his dog, and he starts running away.
That's him. That's him there. There. Look.
and they're chasing him, but he's elderly and rickety. And so I thought that was great. And I also appreciate that they put in there, he asked, what about my dog? The dog's running away. I appreciate that because quite often the dogs are.
But there's so a lot of those ridiculous things that are portrayed in the movie actually did happen. Maybe not at the same
Maybe
time.
not at the same time, but the ridiculousness ensued at some point.
Yeah.
So shall we do the final glass?
We shall do the final glass.
Again, I am preloaded and you are performative. I've got cat hair flying around everywhere.
I also like to be able to measure how much I want in the end. If it's been a tough taping, my
If
glass
we've
is
been
a little bit more
discussing
full.
real
It's
things.
a little bit more full.
Zdravia.
Zdravia.
Yeah, I like the malina.
Hennessy grows on you.
Doesn't?
It does.
It does. I will say it does smell really good. It does smell really good.
And try a sip.
No. So my grandfather loved his whiskey as well, but with my grandfather, it was always Wild Turkey. I think actually he did have a bottle of Hennessy, and I was very well acquainted with
For
his liquor
special
cabinet.
occasions. Yeah, everyone did.
Very well acquainted with his liquor cabinet as a child. I mean, how smooth can it be? Because you're tossing back water now.
I gotta hydrate. Never know if we're gonna do another taping today.
No, we aren't. So things
If
as
we
they
did, it would be a lot more fun.
it would be a lot. There would be so many pop-ups. It would just cover it, cover the whole thing like popcorn. So things as they really are. The Soviet Union sucked.
It would have been if there weren't so many people murdered, it would have been funny. But it was a dictatorship, and it was every dictatorship.
It was
eventually-
beyond. Like you look at that and you're like, is dictatorship a strong enough word?
But it descends into self-parody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the movie did a good job of capturing that. And I think that's why it was banned, because you can't have the truth just hanging out there. You can't have people seeing the truth. Otherwise, the dictatorship, whichever one, the authoritarian government starts to lose control.
But never underestimate people's ability to deny the truth when it doesn't suit their purposes.
So one of my favorite jokes, which applied to the Soviet Union, but it actually applies to a few other countries now, is a judge comes home laughing and his wife asks him, "What's so funny?" He said, "I just heard the funniest joke in the world." And she asks him, well, why are you holding me in suspense? What was it? He says, "I can't tell you. I just gave a guy 10 years for telling it to me." So I think that's happening in a few places now. But the Soviet Union was infamous for it.
It was, and the very fact that they made a joke about it, it says a lot about how the Eastern world has dealt with you can't not call this trauma.
Yeah.
There is a collective cultural trauma that goes back further than the Soviet Union, because certainly life under the Tsar was not super awesome and rainbows either.
Yeah. So there's another joke, which is three guys are sitting in jail. One says, who are you and what are you in for? "Oh, I criticized the policy of Comrade Molotov at the 6th Party Congress, and so I'm sitting here." And they ask the second guy, "Who are you?" He says, "Oh, I promoted the policy of Comrade Molotov at the 7th Party Congress." And they said to the last guy, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Molotov."
Molotov almost did end up there. That was almost real. That almost wasn't a joke. It was almost the truth.
Yeah. So these things happen there.
They did. And you have to be and here's the other quote that we talk about, right? So when people don't study history, it tends to repeat itself.
Yeah.
And for those that do study history, they have to watch everybody else repeat it.
Yeah, it's true.
So next week is going to be our final glass of season 2. And we decided, okay, by we, I mean me, it's decided that we've done a bunch of history. We should look at the future. So we are going to watch one of my favorite movies of all time from 1990, Robot Jocks.
Oof.
Okay, first of all, it's a great movie. Second of all, actually, it has way more to do with current events than one would have thought in 1990. So basically, the movie's about people, there's a nuclear war, people use robots to fight each other and whatever.
I agree that it's a movie. It's definitely.
It is a movie. It is a movie. Has the guy from Alien Nation in it.
Yeah.
So next week, our last final glass of this season, Robot Jocks.
What to do?